Welcome back, riders. Today we get to talk about how awesome we're doing, about how far we've come along, and how I can see that we're already taking risks. And I want to congratulate you for that. A little round of applause. But here's the deal. We are going further. And today we're going to make sure that we are telling stories exactly the way we saw them. And we're going to tell the details exactly how they occurred. Let's go. So, riders, I understand that we've already been told in the past, and we probably know that when we write personal narrative stories, that we have to write it from inside the story, that we close our eyes and it's like a video, a movie, a TikTok that we can see before us. However, sometimes it's easy to lose sight of that and include these other details that just are not true to the story that we know. And so we need to make sure that when we think about our point of view, it's only what we would have experienced, what we would have heard, what we would have seen, what we would have tasted or touched or smelled. So right now, let's take a look at an example that shows us what that could look like. So here is example 1. I was at the changing table, my little sister squirming beneath me, when my dad put the box on the kitchen table and then, peeling off a long strip of tape and pulling back one of the flaps, looked in on a jumble of family photos with little photos, albums, scattered throughout. The photos showed me and my sister when we were little. They were the ones he'd lost. So, riders, pause the video and think to yourself, what's wrong with the point of view of this story? So, riders, there we go. Our main character is at the changing table. The dad is at the kitchen table. But somehow our main character knows exactly what's in the box. Not only that there's pictures, but what kind of pictures, without the dad saying anything. Okay, let's check out the next example to see how this might get fixed. I was still at the changing table, my sister squirming beneath me, when my dad came into the kitchen and dropped a heavy carton on the kitchen table. I heard him rustling about, and then I heard him mutter, "Unbelievable, just unbelievable," he called from across the room. "Remember all those lost photos from our farm? They're all here." So, how did the author change the point of view? Think to yourself for about 30 seconds while you pause the video. How did the author change the point of view? So, the point of view changed because it's not our main character, which is our narrator's voice, saying what's happening. Like in the previous example, it said that there were photos in the box, as if our main character knew it. Instead now, our main character is hearing our dad in this story describe what's in the box. Because we experience what he's saying, we can hear it. We can't experience what he's seeing. And so for us to jump into what's inside the box from our own point of view wouldn't make sense. So now we are going to interactively look at an example together and see whether or not our story falls out of the correct perspective. As in, is this something our character could have actually seen, heard, tasted, smelled, touched? Or is it not our own point of view? Listen along. Keep your thumbs up in front of your chest so that I can see it, as long as you think that the perspective or point of view is correct. When you think it changes and it shouldn't have, switch it to a thumbs down. I made my way slowly toward the front of the line, as one by one kids in soggy bathing suits sat at the edge of the water slide before disappearing suddenly down the chute. I was next in line, and the thumping in my heart was almost audible. I can do this, I thought to myself. I took one step forward. Okay. If you thought that our perspective didn't change, you're correct. We're good so far. Let's keep going. Soon, I was at the edge of the slide. I leaned forward just enough to peer down below at the small blue rectangle of a pool, dotted with the heads of swimmers below. I shut my eyes quickly, dizzied from the height. Okay, how are we doing? So we look at the story. It says, I was at the edge of the slide. I leaned forward and peered down, looked down at the pool. So this is still what I am seeing. And then I shut my eyes. So we're good. Again, thumbs up if we're good, thumbs down as soon as we're not, and we switch perspectives. I carefully sat down, feeling the cold rush of water beneath me. My hands gripped the edges of the slide. Ready? The attendant asked. I think so, I replied. Still unsure, my cousin waited at the bottom, wondering what was taking me so long. What? Did you just... I feel like you put your thumb down. Why is that? Pause for a moment and think, what part of that changed the perspective and why? Okay, so if you felt like we would have no idea what our cousin was doing down there, you're right. If I had said, I could see my cousin wandering around, he looked impatient, then that's what I saw. But all it says is my cousin waited below. You need to be very clear if you're giving that sort of a detail. We're at the end of our time today, writers. Let me just remind you what we learned. That using the correct point of view for your story helps the reader to see what's going on and doesn't confuse them and stuff like, I don't understand how that happened. It's really important that we stick to the details that we would have seen as the main character in our personal narrative. So today, when we leave, when you stop watching this video, let's make sure that not only we go back and check some of our previous stories that we are pretty excited about and maybe add to them, but let's make sure that we already have been staying with the correct point of view. After you check some of those stories, then it's time to add our page for the day. Our full page worth of writing with one of the awesome seed ideas that I know we've tried out from before. If you feel like you don't have any new seed ideas, what could we do about that? Use some of the strategies that we've already written down to come up with more. So right now, you're checking for seed ideas you'd want to write. If there aren't any, add more. If there are, write about one of them. Until next time, happy writing.